So, first of all, welcome to all participants and dignitaries. Let me introduce myself and my organization IDEA. That stand for Institution for Disaster Emergency and Accident, and we are about 8 years old organization. I'm extremely grateful to NIDM for collaborating and giving this opportunity to IDEA on this much needed and wonderful initiative for a broader framework on community-based disaster risk management, that is COP. Only through this outreach, we can involve the committee to be the part of response and be responsible and ready for their own safety and security. Before going to that, I would like to just brief about our organization and how we have done the work in the past in the disaster management areas, especially. Uh, idea had we have done the hazard risk profiling for the 11 countries for Southeast regional countries. We have worked with the WHO Southeast Regional Office, and we prepared the hazard risk profiling for the all 11 countries, hazard mapping, all of them. So, hello. So, the beside that, we have come also with the program Hope and Hero. Hope stand for Hope Hospital Operation Preparedness for Emergency, and Hero stand for Hospital Emergency Response Official. So that is has been inaugurated by our Venkaiah Naidu sir in 2016. So idea behind the COP was in fact the inspiration went back to 2016 when Honorable Cabinet Minister Venkaiah Naidu inaugurated our program, flagship program Hope and Hero. Hope stand for Hospital Operation for Emergency, and Hero stand for Hospital Emergency Response Official. Basically, Hope is for the medicos and the doctors who are operationalized in the hospital to cope with the disaster emergency situation, and Heroes is for the layman people, common people, who where they can stand, they can have their own training skill development for the first responder in the health, and they can build up a kind of resilience in their own community. So COP and its subcomponent in the form of we have come in the form of savior, fighter, and rescuer. Today, we will focus mainly not just on what skill are necessary, keeping in mind the multi-hazard perspective of the response, but also why they are needed in the first place. The basic question we want to answer here is to who need to do what, when, and how during the emergency, which of course we tend to lose the focus when we are trying to focus only mainly on the areas of technicality and the science in DRR. What actually needed to be taught to the community with skill, and why other might not be needed during the disaster. As a rational discussion on this topic will clearly will certainly clear our mindset. I would like to thank respected sir and idea Major General Binder sir, and Chandrani madam, Dr. Chandrani madam, and other faculty member once again at the same time. I would like to thank my team and all the participants who are at the who are the part of this wonderful initiative. We will look forward to working with more closely and application of this COP initiative at the state level and the community level, and also the multi-hazard vulnerability district of the country under the guidance of and the leadership of the NIDM. And we can expand this program to many areas in the country with the under the guidance and the support of the National Road Disaster Management, because this is a much needed program to deal with any kind of disaster or any kind of emergency. And this is kind of training skill set which is more needed to the at the community level, where they can build their own skill set to deal with the deal with the crisis situation before the supports comes. So with this, I will like to request sir to deliver his inaugural address. Thank you.
Thank you, first of all, for collaborating with NIDM. And I also congratulate Ms. Pooja Saxena, who had been talking to me also, and Dr. Chandrani also, for making this possible. And the panelists who are here, and we have good about 73 participants, which itself shows that how people feel about this particular program. And maybe, hopefully, this will be a start of a new collaboration between your institute and NIDM And through your network, we'll be able to reach more and more of the community, which is the need of the day, as you rightly pointed. Uh, I have been into many disasters as a response person, being an army, and in very remote places also, at 17,000 feet, at 18,000 feet, where avalanches occur in villages. There, the one thing which is very uh, common everywhere, whether it was Bhuj earthquake, where my own house had come down, I was part of that response team there also, that it is the local people who save lives the maximum. Golden hour that we talk about, that is possible only by the local people. No one else can replace that tremendous capability that the community has, that neighbors have, the locals have, by through any means necessary, whether it be a use of technology or having large amount of forces pre-prepared. What happens, just a small example, in a house, there's a fire. Now, no one who's outside, they don't know who's there in which room, but the house members are aware. Okay, my father is there, the other room, my mother is there, my daughter has just gone, or my young child has just gone to the washroom. So they are the ones who save the maximum lives by pulling them out, pushing them out, then extolling the other neighbors, helping them. In earthquake, I've seen how people pulled out the people from the debris even before we reached with the first column in 2001. That time we didn't have a response force. How they were pulling out the people from the debris, whatever they could within their own means. How they set up the community langar, how they started giving first aid to each other, how the local doctors got together, and all those who were not hurt. And after that initial period of shock was over, they started treating people. So the community is the first responder. If we talk about first responders, I think we should talk about community as the first responder and then anyone else as the second responder. In that anyone else, the first name that comes up is SDRF and NDRF because they are a trained force and only one type of force in the entire world. And the way they are doing their job, appreciations they are getting, possibly they are the best response force in the world, disaster response force in the world. Still, they take time to reach. Still, they take some time to reach that particular area. So, the importance of the community to have the knowledge as to what to do in what circumstances is very important. The do's and don'ts that we talk about, it should be ingrained in every person in the community. Community should have their own local heroes, local leadership, local community-based organizations should be promoted, that they look after each other, they prepare for such an eventuality, and no one goes into a shock. What happens is people go into a shock when such a calamity occurs. No amount of training, no amount of television prepares them for that particular event. So regular drills with them, regular mock practices, regular discussions with the community is very important as to how, what is likely to happen. In that, if we can bring in virtual reality programs, we can bring in some 3D, 4D type of effects to explain the things better, it will make them more prepared. And within the community, the vulnerable group is the most affected. The old people, the women, especially if they're pregnant or otherwise, then the children, the persons with disabilities, they're very much affected. Community, now I'll give you an example of which again, there was a blind association center. Now that was in a standalone location. There was nothing around it for about 500 to 600 meters. There was no other building around that. There were 18 blind people staying inside that uh, particular facility. When the earthquake came, all of them expired because they didn't know what is happening and what to do. There was no one to guide them. It happened at a particular time when the staff had also not come except for the bare necessary staff who was trying. But he also didn't know what is happening, because the whole thing started with a big, huge bang, and then it started shaking. And 53 seconds is too short a time to restore your balance of mind and start acting. So such things are only possible if regular practices are done, regular mock drills are done, and regular awareness campaigns are run. In that, NDRF is doing a tremendous job during non-disaster period. They spend the complete time not recouping or resting, but training people. They reach out to the community, they go to the village level, and for that, we are very thankful to NDRF for doing that. And your organization is also totally dedicated to this type of job. And that is why when I was given this offer, I said, no, let's take this offer and let's do a program with them so that we can reach out to the community. So my basic initial address, I wanted to bring in why the community is so important, because they are the first responders and they need to save as many lives as possible, because the maximum lives, they know the locality, they know local, they have their friends, they have the relatives, they have that local knowledge. Even when a team goes, they also get hold of a local person. अच्छा बताओ कहीं कोई फंसा हुआ तो नहीं है. So that knowledge is with them. So why not use it? And to use it, they have to be trained so that they think accordingly, they act accordingly, they record things in their mind accordingly. It should become a totally trained reaction to a particular event. That is the level at which we should have our community outreach programs, that every man knows what he's supposed to do. With this, I'll end, because this is a topic which you can speak for hours. So I will give the panelists a chance, because they are all experts in their own field, and I'm keen to hear to them. So thank you so much, and thank you, Nile, and welcome to all the participants once again for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We will now start with the keynote address by Lily Bindal. Lily actually laid down the foundation on which we will now proceed. So we will start with our technical sessions now. So the session 1 is a basic introduction to the COP initiative, the aim, objective, and methodology by Ms. Pooja Saxena, who is the DRR coordinator of IDEA. So may I please invite Ms. Pooja to take on the session right now.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again. And thank you, Bindal sir, for such a, good a keynote address, which really defines the program in its sense. And we are going to again reiterate what you have said in such so many simple words. We are going to present in the same manner. And of course, with your guidance, I start the presentation. So welcome all once again to the Community Outreach Program webinar. And this is an initiative which IDEA has been fortunate enough to partner with our leading agency of the nation, National Institute for Disaster Management. The COP, the very word, is an actionable word, and literally means community outreach program in the literal sense as well. So we, when we say COP, we are here to, as sir had said, that the community outreach program is very important. And we are at IDEA Institution have been working with the community for long. And we have rehearsed this in a lot of ways in which we have come together and identified that why this should be in the place. 1 second, I'll just. So when IDEA has been working with the community for long, we decided that what it is, we have worked with the forces, we have worked with the community, we have worked under various programs of ours, like Neelaji mentioned, the Health Emergency Response Official, the Integrated Disaster Management Program with the universities, the hospital operational preparedness with the hospital sector. We have worked with the community in and out. We have worked in bifurcation with technical institutions, but reaching out to the community as large. But when we say community, we define, we understand that, you know, it has to start from bottom up approach. It has to start from where the very first disaster, when it strikes, who's the first responder? That is where the capacity needs to be built, and that is where we decided. And that was not a decision in the sense it was discussed, it was understood, it was realized. So with the given programs of ours, we had a vision that we have to create a culture of preparedness. We have to build capacity in the community. And this culture of preparedness will not come in a go. We need to work with each section of the society to bring this perspective. And this, this knowledge that we have to work with each section of the society help us coin all these different programs. So not only we were looking at health sector, not only we were looking at the education sector, not only we were looking at the community at large, but we were also looking at how we can start such initiatives which highlight the role of each sector and thus bring a whole culture of preparedness within the community. So building capacity through these programs was very, it took us a conceptual change to be brought into the system. And that is where initially when the COVID response also started in January 19, we were reached upon by NDRF to give training to NDRF on COVID-19. So that was because we had worked with them before and we understood that that we need to be pioneers in this field. Now, when we say that people need to be trained and there is a lack of emergency response, yes, figures support us. There is a huge gap. Almost 18 lakh people die because of lack of emergency response, because at that given point emergency response is not reached. So now being trained is not a choice, but it is a need. We have to understand this perspective. And that is where Institution for Disasters has taken this ground that yes, we need to segmentize, we need to understand the need of each section of the society and build programs according to them. One fit formula would not apply to all the sections. So that is where right from educational institutes, right from technical agencies, right from interagency coordination, and also other local organizations like Indian Red Cross chapters, like in Kerala, there are a lot of agencies which are doing CBDRM. So we have been trying to exchange and share notes with them, understand what are the things and nuances we need to bring in order to get this rolling. So when we thought that, okay, we need to come to a community level sustainable program, we need to look for something which is not only shares our concept, shares our belief, but is also sustainable. So we all would agree that Orissa Cyclone Management Program is something which we should look forward to. Day in and day out for past almost a decade, cyclone program in Orissa has run successfully. It has shown its results. It has shown that regular intervention with the community, regular investment in the community leads to right results. And this is where our thought process has started for Idea Corp. We said that, things can be done, things can be explored. So harnessing the power of community-based CBDRR initiatives by building up the response capacity at local level, we knew that this would help in reducing the dependencies on the government and specialized agencies. So this empowering and this skills that we could give to the community at large, and not only skills as in broad skills for the community, but hazard specific skills those skills which are needed at a given particular place. So those kind of skills can be taught to them. Only by regular intervention, consistent practice, and consistently following up that program, we need to understand that a culture of safety and behavioral change can be brought in. So hence a very interesting journey of COP started. We knew that there was a need. We knew that things had to be brought into the perspective and people had to be trained, but still we needed to crystallize the whole concept. And that is where we said that we should go back to the people, we should go back to the drawing board to start. And that is where we conducted the online survey in 20 most multi-hazard districts of India through our iChat tool, the iChat tool that we have. So we conducted the survey in 20 most hazard-prone, multi-hazard prone districts of the country. And the results, when I share with you, you would agree with me. These are the 20 most multi-hazard prone districts of the country, right from Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Delhi, Bihar, Assam, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. These were our 20 identified districts. We have not touched Central India in this, but we have earlier worked in Indore as well. So we had known that what kind of information, what kind of support that the community needs there. So when we look at the results of the COP survey, I have the 60% of the respondents were female in our survey, and luckily the age group that responded us was 20 to 30. So this is the age group that we would like to invest in terms of looking at the sustainability element of this training. And when we come to the next question, we ask them how many people of them knew actually what are the kind of disasters that they would face in their own given districts. So 94% agreed that they knew, they were very much aware what are the kind of dangers, what is the kind of disaster that they would face year in and year out, because we do have an annual calendar of disasters. Every localized region more or less knows what kind of disturbances that they would be looking witness to. So then we ask the respondents that does a disaster disturb their routine? Yes, 92% of the people agreed that a disaster disturbs their routine. And let me tell you, to understand the contrast, if we just see that 92% agree that there's a disaster disturbs their routine, only 8% of the respondents felt confident and skilled to combat that disturbance. So that is where we understand, we analyze that there's a huge gap in demand and supply. Now, even we know that in India, neighborhood are very helping. There's Bindal sir had also reiterated that without the first respondent, we could not achieve. So neighborhood emergencies have been tackled. 77% agree that they have been getting support from the neighborhood in terms of any emergency. But again, they say that, they could have responded better if they were trained. So again, 77% feel that if they were better trained, they would have responded better in neighborhood emergencies. Now, when we come down from neighborhood to our own family, when we talk about ourselves, the nuclear family or the families which have different age groups, only 5% respondents feel confident in assisting a friend or a family who has sustained injury. So this is where people feel the lack, that they want to respond, they genuinely want to be there, help their family members, but they don't feel confident enough because of lack of training. Now, a very simple or a very not simple, but a heart attack is something which every family knows about, people know about. It's a very old kind of a shock. Now, in that also, if you see, only 5% respondents feel that they can handle the situation if a heart attack happens to their family members. So this is the kind, people do not, they, even after genuine reason that they need to help, they want to help, but they don't feel equipped to do so, skilled to do so. So coming down to next, do respondents prepare for going to a trip? Yes, majorly they do, but still 23% of the people still do not do any kind of a preparation before going to a trip. And I have to say that earthquakes have been one of the major focus of our DM program in the country. And people have been disseminated the knowledge on earthquake by the government in a large way. But still 10% of the people say that they would evacuate a building while it is shaking. So still there is a gap in terms of response, in terms of doing the right thing. Still reiteration needs to be done on something as basic as earthquake preparedness. Now, small events that can be dangerous, like gas cylinder leaks in their own home. Still 4% of the respondents say that they do not know what to do when there is a gas leak in their home. Though majorly no, but still 4% there's a gap. Now, when the respondents, their people, their family members, friends who are in grief. Now, 27% of the people still say that they do not know how to support when someone is in grief. They themselves feel incapable to do so. So, things which are a part of our daily lives, there is still deficiency in terms of skilling the community. Now, when we said that how many people would like to get trained and be responsible citizens, a staggering 95% agreed that they would welcome any kind of training for saving their lives and their near dear ones. So here, hence the birth of COP. So a very simple motto, the community outreach program is designed to skill the community in such a way that they are able to save lives of themselves as well as their near dear ones. The program is especially designed to save lives. The whole intention of the program is to just help people learn how to save lives of themselves and the others. So if you come to the major objectives that we are looking at under this program, training and empowering the community by understanding what their actual needs or actual skills that the community needs. We are trying to reduce or to prevent the loss of lives during a disaster and its aftermath, because we all would agree that disaster is just the beginning. Aftermath, there are a lot of assistance that needs to go in for the community to come back to what it was. Now, to provide immediate and appropriate assistance. So not only immediate but appropriate. We need the people to know how that should be done. In a lot of cases in road accidents, you all might have seen that people gather there, want to help, but then due to inappropriate handling of the injured, they further damage their spine or things like that. So the intent is there, the genuinity to help is there, but still due to not understanding how to technically help them, it leads to further deterioration. So now we are trying to work on not only rapidly assisting them, appropriately assisting them, but also sustainable. Every initiative that we want to do in Institution for Disasters, Emergency and Accidents we want to do it in a sustainable manner, that it doesn't start and end within a given time frame, but has a roadmap further. Now coming back to how we have designed the program. Now, as per the survey, we have tried to assess the skills. We have tried to see what kind of skills are needed to run this, to make the community aware. The first is the fighter, basic firefighting and extrication skills. We all have seen a lot of hospital fires, hotel fires in hotels, fires, home fire, domestic fires, restaurants, Mumbai fire. There have been a lot of instances we have been witness to. So fighter concepts also include self-defense, but basic firefighting and extrication is key. Savior, yes, in any given situation, savior or basic life-saving skills should be known, whether it's a heart attack, whether it's even in a heart attack, if we kind to see that, in the given time frame, if we are able to act, we would be able to make the patient more comfortable, and at least a little more longer he could sustain in order to reach the hospital. And same is with the rescuer. So basic search and rescue and evacuation skills, whether it's a landslide, whether it's any type of a disaster. In my next slide, I've bifurcated like hazard specific skills for each geographical region. We would be training the community accordingly, which are prone to flood, would need basic search and rescue evacuation skills, and of course, basic life saving. When it's in landslide, it should be basic search and rescue evacuation as well as life saving. Similarly, for earthquake, for fire, of course, we need to have firefighting and extrication and life saving. And cyclone, again, search, rescue, evacuation, and life saving. And tsunami and volcano and so on and so forth. So given it is not that one bill fits all, we have to understand the geographical area and appropriately train the community. So just to finish here, the concept that we have brought in is basically that in CBDRM, COP we would take is a new beginning, and we would like to seek support from your agency and also to guide us and develop this concept further.
Thank you, Pooja. Very comprehensive overview of the work that we do and the concepts of fire safety and rescue. So we now come to the next presentation on the fighter session. That is the basic firefighting skills and the extrication skills by Mr. Munish Kumar, fire safety expert and a faculty of IBM. So I would like to invite Mr. Munish Kumar to please begin his session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so basis on the survey results, as Pooja was discussing on various output which has come out from this survey. So this basic firefighting and extrication skills are very important skill set for a common man or individual. So the program agenda is related to basic firefighting and extrication skills. So this session will include various discussion on what is firefighter and community resilience. If you're talking about what is the skill set which a common man or individual should know. Then there are various fire accident statistics in India, which is very important to understand the fact that there are various large number of fire accidents which can be prevented with the introduction of this skill set. Then there is very tragic incident in Delhi, which we have gone through. Delhi Anaj Mandi fire case study. We'll see some of those details because there were very high triggers from this fire accident that every individual should know at least some of the basic concepts related to firefighting and extrication. So those aspects we will cover. Then there are different methods of firefighting with use of equipment and with the use of equipment, so that we will be discussing what a common individual or a participant should know. So who is actually fighter? If we see the meaning of fighter, every individual in this whole world is fighter. Currently also we are fighting for a disaster like medical disaster COVID-19, but if we take the fire fighting as the aspect, so firefighter is someone specially trained in extinguishing large fires. They are qualified individuals having specific responsibility to support someone who is stuck in large amount of fires, and not only the life saving, but it also protect various other individuals also. But if we see the data of firefighters in India, there is a shortage in emergency fire services in India, and this is the report from government authorities. There was a study conducted in year 2011, December 2011, with the Institute RMSI, and this study results are available on DGFSC website also. India has a short of 90% of required manpower in fire services. We have not included the firefighters who are doing this service voluntarily, like we have very good infrastructure of civil defense. But if we talk about the specific and qualified manpower in terms of firefighters, we are deficit of 90% as of date. And there was a on-record response related to some question in Rajya Sabha also in year 2018, which also proves that we are short of such amount of firefighters in India. So considering this fact, we need to develop community skill set related to basic firefighting, because as sir was also suggesting that local individuals are first responder in any kind of emergency situation. So community resilience is something which we need to work upon, and these basic firefighting skills are very much important to deal with, considering the large amount of fire accidents across India. And there are data available, I'll show you in next slides, wherein approximately 35 deaths are there on an average daily basis related to fire accidents. So developing skills in community to do basic firefighting is the requirement, and we cannot depend on authorities, because so those responders may take some time, but community, if having these skill sets, will respond it very quickly, and they can prevent from converting small fires into big fires. Related to this fact, we also have Article 21, which also describes about protection of life. So this Article 21 is related to the protection of life and personal liberty. So if we are stuck in some situation and individuals are not able to do or respond perfectly without having the proper knowledge or skill set, so it is like taking away this protection of individual life. So that is also, this skill set is also related with Article 21 requirements. So let's see some statistics related to fire accidents in India. So this is a report from NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau, which was released in February 2020. And according to this data, Indians, there are 35 Indians on an average die in fire accidents daily, because there are 12,748 deaths due to fire accidents in 2018. So this is an average of 2018. If we take the average of data from 2015 to 2018, so this number will increase a bit, because there was some reduction in year 2018. It was around 1.2% reduction of previous year. So 56% of all these fires are in residential buildings, or we can say that these fires are at home. We're not talking about the large amount of fires in organized sectors, because they might have very good infrastructure and available manpower related to firefighting. But if you're talking about residential buildings, 56% of these accidents are in those areas. And out of these 12,748 deaths, 7,244 are female or women died out of these deaths. So we need to accept this fact that that females can be more vulnerable, but they can be trained well in these sectors, so that these numbers can be reduced if it is male or female. So if you're talking about the data, 5,503 number of men died in year 2018 because of fire accidents. So this statistics also prove one fact, that we need mass awareness programs, especially at home, at community level, and that's how this first session or first target is related to fighters. We have to develop fighter skills across the community related to basic firefighting. So there was an incident in Delhi on 8th December 2019. So it was very well in news. You all might be aware that there were 48 persons who died in this fire. So this fire started at 5 a.m. in the morning. Fire station was very near, approximately 400-meter distance away. But despite of those facts, because those individuals or the persons who were working in this factory was not aware about the hazards or the risk existing in those buildings, which are like we got the facts that they don't have proper fire NOC or the fire systems available, which should be there in any kind of factory. So this is bit of a contradiction. We will see that this was very tragic incidents, and we also saw a lot of recordings that they made phone calls at their home just before they got stuck in this fire scenario, because smoke is the major killer. So awareness and enforcement of law is another key to have the resilience from fire accidents in the community. So if you're talking about the awareness related to basic firefighting, first we will talk about first aid of firefighting. So similar to life saving, firefighting also have its first aid, and that first aid is to understand the fire extinguisher, how to operate those extinguishers. There are different types of fire existing in at any kind of places. So those are classified into class A, class B, class C, class D, and class K according to the type of fuel which is burning in these fire, because each class of fire has its own specific requirement. For example, if you're talking about oil fire, that is class B fire, we cannot use simply the water on those fire. But if you are using the water in such fire scenario, it will definitely increase the intensity of fire. Same way, we have the fire classification C. There are electrical fires in place. So we cannot use again the water or another method of fire extinguishing, which is very specific electrical fire. So every individual should understand that these fire classification are related with the firefighting methods. We need to understand the basics of fire, that is fuel, heat, and oxygen. So that needs to be taught at society level. If we see the data related to fire accidents, most of the fire, like 56% of fire, are in domestic area. So there are skills like what should be done in case of LPG leakage or LPG fire. So those things becomes very critical, because these skill sets will be playing a big role in preventing small fire and converting those fires into a big fire, because a large amount of fires can be prevented with the awareness about single moment of carelessness. So that's how these skills will play very important role in creating the resilience related to firefighting skills in the community. And not only the basic facts related to classification, related to firefighting methods, the success of firefighting also depends upon various aspects of firefighting. Availability of firefighting equipment, and always availability is not just the requirement, it is the working condition of firefighting equipment which is also necessary. There are some cases of fire wherein building has all the systems in place, including sprinkler system, fire pump room, but with the lack of the understanding that all these systems in buildings must be in automatic mode. So those fires can become very large and will become a disastrous in that particular building. So very small information or knowledge related to firefighting can help in reducing the impact of large amount of fire. So type of fire and the correct way to extinguish according to type of fire is very important, and this is the first aid. Like extinguisher usage is very simple. If we see the demonstration, if we have the practical session and the mock drill, and people also can be taught related to various types of demonstration, that how to use these extinguishers. And even if we say that we don't have any extinguishers at home, what are the alternatives which are available in case of such fire situations, because I faced in my neighborhood one such fire incident. So this fire was in the main electrical supply. So the family member of that fire was not aware what to do. They were simply shouting, and then they came out. So they were not having any extinguisher at that particular time. But yes, they were watching, they were just seeing the fire situation. So that time, what we did, because there was no sand, no fire extinguisher, water cannot be used in electrical fire. So wheat flour was used in place of sand in that situation. So sometimes our common sense also plays very important role. If the fire is very small, wheat flour can also play a big role in extinguishing the small amount of fire. But if the fire has become large, even that wheat flour will itself become a fuel. So such small examples is very sufficient to understand the fact that the awareness related to these facts are very important, and a single right decision at that particular moment can prevent any small incident becoming the large fire. So there are some other actions related to firefighting. For example, if we see that when somebody is involved in firefighting, he should be conscious about the exit routes. It should not happen that if somebody is doing firefighting and then he is getting stuck himself. Protection from smoke is another very important aspect. A simple skill of wet cloth, covering wet cloth on our face, can increase the available time in the smoke from 20 to 30%. And that 20 to 30% time, if we are getting in the smoke or fire situation, is very important in fighting those fire situations. So the protection from fire and smoke is another very important aspect. Then we should have direction and distancing of firefighting is also very important. The location, if we say normally we use the pass method when we are playing or using the fire extinguisher. So this pass method states that the direction of flow should be at the lower level of the fire to have the effective firefighting. So this is very simple example, but at community level, they may not be aware about these facts. So such kind of examples needs to be given along with various other methods, which includes beating, blanketing, use of sand, use of water, where we can use water, because if it is simply the solid fire, that is class A, water is very effective in that area. Foam is very effective for liquid fire if we are fighting with class B fire. Then carbon dioxide or various other neutral gases are there which can be used for firefighting in electrical areas especially. Then dry chemical powder is another magical powder which can be used for multiple types of fire, that is for class A, B, C. Wet cloth, we already discussed that this is very relevant to have protection from smoke. Even the skills like while doing evacuation, we should be at lower level to have the large amount of oxygen and small impact from smoke. So those skills are very important, and firefighting skills should be considered with the skills of savior and rescuer, so that my colleagues will also be taking those sections. So it's like combination of all these skills. If we are giving to community, they will have another level of confidence. They will be able to fight such emergency situation. They will be helping in preventing the large amount of fires by taking the right decision at the right particular time. So next is basic extrication. Apart from the firefighting skills, so this has also come out the very relevant skill set for community level related to fighting. So extrication is nothing but some techniques which is required to get someone out of difficult or unpleasant situation. So normally we use this extrication terms with the help of vehicle extrications. So vehicle extrication is the process of removing a vehicle from around a person. Normally, vehicle extrication is being done by firefighters and emergency personnel with the use of heavy hydraulic equipments. But if these equipments are not available, what steps should be taken? How can we prevent the injury from becoming severe? Because head injury and spinal injuries play very important role in such situations. So there are a lot of road accidents which require the techniques of basic extrications as a need of hour. So if we see the statistics related to road accidents, so this is more alarming than the fire. There were reported road accidents in 2018, and this is the data again from NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau. 4,67,044 reported accidents we have seen in 2018, and approximate 1,51,417 deaths due to road accidents in 2018. And this is just the reportable data. Actual may also be higher than this. So specifically, there were 4,69,418 road accident injuries. And the major reason of these accidents, which was come out of these reports from NCRB, was 64% cases were of overspeeding. So people intend to increase the speed or doing overspeeding just to save fractions of second, but it is very, very serious hazard which is taking a lot of life, and you can see the numbers. And 69.6% of these deaths are from young adults, that is from 18 years to 45 years of age. So extrication plays an important role in reducing the overall time for victims till medical facilities. So that's how extrication skills plays very important role. So we will not talk about the details and techniques of these vehicle extrication skills, but the importance of extrication, we need to understand what all basic skills it require. So the goal is very realistic, that it should not take much time to take out the person or the victim from an entangled vehicle in case of any collision. It requires up-to-date knowledge and uniform training, include the knowledge of our four-wheelers or domestic cars. What are the facilities or inbuilt safety features available? For example, movement of seat is a very relevant feature. We should know how to use those features in case of such extrication techniques. If we are delaying our response in extrication, it can lead to large number of deaths, and it is increasing the number of deaths in our country. Late treatment may also lead to permanent or temporary disability if we are not able to send our victims to hospitals or medical facilities. If extrication is taking time, if we don't have the specific skills and tools available with us, so that may increase the time of travel from the accident scene to hospital. So we need to increase the chance of recovering from these accidents, and we need to understand the basic extrication procedures. So all community persons should understand a small initiatives of keeping knife in case of such accident. If somebody is stuck, cutting off seat belt may help in extrication of the individual. So that is also very common example. So if you're talking about extrication procedures, it involves various stages, starting from scene safety, identification of hazards. It involves stabilizing the victims. It involves stabilizing the vehicles, and finally the removal of person from vehicles. So these are sequential process. We need to take care of the victim during the extrication process, especially the head, neck, and back axis, because this is directly linked with our brain and the nervous system, which control our whole body. If there is any significant damage in that area, so that will increase the severity of accidents. So that understanding needs to be given, why head injury can become serious, and what is the reason, how to stabilize the victim, especially that head, neck axis. So those skills are very relevant. So if we divide and understand the basic extrication procedures, it involves scene safety and stabilization, whether we are talking about usage of personal protective equipment by the firefighter or the individuals who are involved in extrication process, stabilization of spinal cord, vehicle orientation and balancing. Sometimes there is a requirement to balance the vehicle first and then follow the extrication process. That is also the need of time during such situations. Hazard controls is another aspect which involves identification of fuel leaks, fire suppression, maybe the requirement if there is leakage of fuels from the vehicles. Then traffic controls become very important aspects because sometimes accident scene can be on highway. So we need to take control of those hazards before we start or during the process of extrication in the vehicles. Then gaining access to the victim, assess the condition of victim, and then assist in at least stabilizing the conditions so that the life can be saved. And finally, the disentanglement part, which is removal of vehicles away from ground, the victim, and the minimum manipulation. Sometimes it may require door or roof removal or the seats conditions changing. So these will include the part of extrication procedures. So if we summarize these facts, so every individual should learn these life skills because these are now not an option, it is the need of hour. It will help in saving the lives at community level, and it will reduce the number of deaths and injuries because of fire, because of vehicle accidents or road accidents. So that's how it will increase the confidence at individual level and at community level if we are imparting these skills related to basic firefighting and basic extrications. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Munishji, for a very comprehensive presentation. We learned a lot about the fighter part of it, and we now call upon Shri Aditya Singhvi, Deputy Commandant of 8th Battalion NDRF, who will speak on the role played by the rescuers yeah, welcome Aditya Pratap Singhvi. We will call upon Mr. Singh to start with his presentation and on the role and the various opportunities, challenges faced by the rescuers. So when we're talking of fighters and now we come to rescuers.
So today I'll speak on earthquake emergencies and landslide, flood emergencies, drowning cases and accident cases. This is the vulnerability profile of India, in which I have depicted the cyclone emergencies, flood emergencies, earthquake and landslide. If we superimpose all these maps, then we will find that there is a very little place left in India which is safe. And of course, if I superimpose the CBRN emergencies vulnerability profile, then for sure, take my words, then that there is no place safe in India, because on papers we count the MAH unit as the CBRN emergencies, for the CBRN emergencies, the major accidental hazard units. And according to environmental protection law, there is a certain quantity beyond which, if they are containing the element, they are called as MAH unit. But 1000 ton की capacity है, and I am compiling only 990 kilograms, then it will not count as a MAH unit, but it is equally vulnerable and hazardous. So we should prepare ourselves accordingly, and disasters, except the earthquake, disasters are no more surprise thanks to INCOIS, SASE, IMD, CWC and other early warning agencies. We can prepare ourselves accordingly. But what happened, as sir has told in his inaugural address, that in the initial golden hours, community is the first responder, and when disasters strike and the relief arrives, basically the SDRF, NDRF, civil defense personnel, so when they arrive, this depends on the geographical conditions of the disaster, of that system. So till that time, the community is on their own. They don't know how to react. As Pooja ji also shared his survey, in which she told us that only 8% feel 8% people, they feel that they are skilled and they can help the neighbors. So they are our own, and there is no shelter, no potable water, no food, and people don't know how to take care during this interim period. And where is the problem? Problem hai that we are untrained. Most of the citizens are untrained. We should understand and we should learn that death is only a possibility, whereas survival is a choice. And we should turn ourselves with a disaster from a disaster victim into storytellers. We should learn to wipe the tears, our own tears, and the tears of our near and dear one, and replace it with a smile. How NDRF is doing this? We are doing this through the capacity building program and this IDEA. They have initiated like the programs COP. So the first emergency is earthquake. This is my home, and after that, after earthquake, you all know what happened. First of all, we should know that in which seismic zone we are living. We are living in seismic zone 4. Delhi NCR region is in Delhi in seismic zone 4, which is high damage risk zone. What happened in high damage risk zone? So clay houses and mud houses, there will be a complete destruction. Agar 7 या 7 से ऊपर का earthquake आया, so there will be a complete destruction of clay houses and mud houses. The ordinary brick buildings, there would be a heavy destruction. RCC and well-built structures हैं, there will be a heavy to moderate damage, and high-rise buildings. Basically, दिल्ली NCR में जिस तरह से high-rise buildings बने हुए हैं, and तो उसका तो भगवान ही जाने उसका क्या होगा. So to prepare ourselves, what should we do? Can we learn the animal instinct? Can we learn the language of the animals? Yes, we can. जो dogs हैं, but it's very difficult to understand that whether dog is in joy or in panic or he is in frustration. Why he is howling? We can trace the colonial migration of the toads, but for last 3.5 years I have never seen any toad on the road on any ground, because I am in Delhi NCR region, which is now I think I have not seen any frog or toad in between. We can follow the ants and we can follow the peculiar behavior of the rodents. They are standing, they are freezing, but you won't find here at this place. We can see the giant oarfishes or other deep sea animals who are coming out during the tsunami and cyclone and during earthquake also. But it's also very difficult because no ocean here. We can see the birds flying higher to the grounds, but maybe possible कि किसी कबूतरबाज ने अपने कबूतर उड़ाए हो. So it's very difficult. So I have one more solution, and this is the vampire bat. We can domesticate it, but WHO ने कहा है इससे बिल्कुल दूर रहना है, and so this is also not a solution. So what should we do? For example, last year I was in Mussoorie. I was doing my promotional course at Mussoorie. The Mussoorie Academy is situated on the slope, which is the heavily densely populated rhododendron jungle, जो बुरांस का फूल जिसे कहते हैं. And there are monkeys, लंगूर, और जो पक्षी हैं, कई तरह के वहाँ पक्षी हैं, और obviously जो pet dogs और domesticated animals होते हैं. One fine day, we were studying in our class. अचानक से सबने एक अजीब सा बिहेवियर शुरू किया. बंदरों ने पेड़ों पर उछलना शुरू किया, लंगूर भी इधर उधर उछलने लगे, कुत्तों ने हाउलिंग शुरू करी, और जिसे कहते हैं हम रोना, उसका डॉग्स का, वो डॉग्स ने रोना शुरू किया और पक्षी अचानक उड़ने लगे. सो आई सेड टू माय कलीग्स दैट ऐसा ना हो कोई अर्थक्वेक आए. तो वो थोड़ा सा हंसने लगे, बोले कि बिकॉज यू आर इन दिस फील्ड, सो हर जगह तुमको वही दिखाई देता है. बट आफ्टर फ्यू मिनट्स एक छोटा सा लैंडस्लाइड, एक ड्यू टू कंस्ट्रक्शन, वो ऊपर एक होटल बना हुआ था, स्टर्लिंग होटल है, वहां से एक छोटा स्लाइड आया. आप समझ लीजिए लगभग इतना होगा जितना एक ट्रक का मलबा होता है. बट इवन देन दोज एनिमल्स वर एबल टू ट्रेस द मूवमेंट and the tremors well before it arrives at our place. So that animal instinct is a good thing, but it is very rare also. So we should understand that earthquake never kills. These are the buildings. जो हम जिस buildings में रहते हैं ये इंसान को मारती हैं. और अगर हमारा घर earthquake resistant नहीं है, what are those reasons? Number one, we don't know about the NBC, the National Building Codes. जब हम घर खरीदते हैं, when we purchase our home, so we are not well aware of this NBC codes कि हमको कितने मंजिल की वहाँ बिल्डिंग बनानी है, उस जोन में बिल्डिंग बनानी भी है नहीं. नंबर वन, अगर बनानी है तो कितने मंजिल बिल्डिंग वहाँ पर अलाउड है. अगर अलाउड है तो क्या वो जो मैप है उसका आर्किटेक्ट से पास किया हुआ है, शायद कई बार नहीं होता है. और अगर आर्किटेक्ट से पास भी कराया है तो whether a trained staff or the builder has make that building, या फिर हमने किसी unskilled labor से बना लिया है. So the fourth one, I know in Indian context it is not possible कि हम हमेशा constructor से और builder से building बनवाते हैं. अच्छा है कि अभी medieval यूरोप की तरह guilds नहीं है, otherwise they will start protesting कि आप तो राजमिस्त्री और जो छोटे मजदूर हैं उनके पेट पे लात मारना चाह रहे हैं. बट ये फैक्टर इंडिया में होता है, इसलिए हमको क्या करना है, अगर हमारी बिल्डिंग अर्थक्वेक रेजिस्टेंस नहीं है तो हमारे पास क्या ऑप्शन बचा? द ओनली ऑप्शन लेफ्ट विद अस दैट प्रिपेयर योरसेल्फ, प्रिपेयर योर फैमिली एंड प्रिपेयर योर वर्कप्लेस और योर होम. सो व्हाट शुड वी डू बिफोर द अर्थक्वेक? वी शुड आइडेंटिफाई द सेफ हेवन. अब ये कैसे किया जा सकता है? जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अपने घर में खेल में करता हूँ कि जो मैंने प्लेस आइडेंटिफाई किया है, एक कॉर्नर है, वहाँ टेबल रखी हुई है, वहां पर मैं पीने का पानी, खाने का सामान रख सकता हूँ इमरजेंसी में. एंड आई हैव आइडेंटिफाइड दैट प्लेस एट अ सेफ हेवन. सो व्हेन आई प्ले हाइड एंड सीक विद माय किड्स, आई यूजुअली चूज दिस प्लेस ओनली. कि बार बार वहां पर जाएंगे तो बच्चे के मसल मेमोरी में एक चीज बन जाएगी कि अगर कुछ हो जाए तो हमको इस जगह छिपना है. लाइकवाइज आप कोई भी किसी भी तरह का एग्जांपल सेट कर सकते हैं डिपेंडिंग ऑन सिचुएशन की कितने बच्चे कितने बड़े हैं वो. नंबर 2, इवैक्यूएशन प्लान. व्हाट शुड बी योर इवैक्यूएशन प्लान? दैट शुड बी नो टू योरसेल्फ, योर फैमिली, योर किड्स. कि अगर कुछ ऐसा हो जाता है, ट्रेमर्स आने पर तो हम रुकेंगे, लेकिन ट्रेमर्स जब खत्म हो जाएंगे उसके बाद हम कौन से रास्ते का यूज करते हुए हम सेफ प्लेस तक जाएंगे. We should be in habit to prepare a DM kit. It can be useful in earthquake scenario, in flood scenario, in landslide scenario. If you are going on an outing, तब भी ये काम करेगी. So इसमें क्या क्या हो सकता है? इसमें जो DM disaster management kit में a transistor with battery. Don't rely on your mobile phones. कि उसमें टॉर्च भी होता है, उसमें तो आपको इनमें से कई सारी चीजें मोबाइल में मिल जाएंगी. बट अगेन एंड अगेन आई एम टेलिंग यू दैट नॉट रिलाई ऑन दिस मोबाइल फोन. Probably this will not work during the emergency situation. So first of all, a transistor with extra battery, torch with extra battery. There should be a whistle, क्योंकि हो सकता है आप डेबरी में फंसे हो तो आप आवाज ना निकाल पाए, या धूल और धुआं इतना हो कि आपकी आवाज ना निकले, या हो सकता है हमारी डर की वजह से ही आवाज ना निकले. So whistle will work. एक something tool जैसे स्विस नाइफ आते हैं या कोई पोर्टेबल इमरजेंसी टूल हो सकता है, तो वो. देन ड्राई राशन. इन ड्राई राशन गुड़ एंड चना इज द बेस्ट सोल्यूशन. बहुत जल्दी खराब नहीं होता है, उसको काफी समय तक रखा जा सकता है और समय समय पे रिप्लेनिश किया जा सकता है. इमरजेंसी मेडिसिन, खासकर उस केस में अगर घर का कोई मेंबर है जो इस तरह की दवाइयां खाता है, वेदर ही इज एस्थमेटिक और शुगर पेशेंट, तो उसकी जो इमरजेंसी ट्रीटमेंट है जो डॉक्टर द्वारा प्रेस्क्राइब्ड है, तो वो अपने साथ डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट किट में रखी जानी चाहिए। A distant mobile number and address of a contact number of a distant relative. And why we are mentioning as a distant relative, जैसे पूजा जी ने अभी अपने सर्वे में बताया कि 5% लोग ही श्योर समझते हैं कि हम कुछ कर पाएंगे, तो इसलिए ऐसा व्यक्ति ऐसा ना हो कि जो आपका नेबर है वो भी उसी आपके साथ उसी मलबे में दबा हो। सो इसलिए ऐसा रिलेटिव जो डिस्टेंट कहीं सिटी में रहता हो एंड वो आपकी मदद कर सकता हो, उसके मोबाइल नंबर आपको, आपके परिवार को, आपके बच्चों को याद होने चाहिए। अ प्लान फॉर रीयूनियन ऑफ द फैमिली, कि अगर इन केस ऐसा कुछ हो जाता है तो हमको वापस आकर किस जगह पर मिलना है। अ बेसिक नॉलेज ऑफ फर्स्ट एड, जैसे कि अभी हम अपना नेक्स्ट जो स्पीकर हैं वो बताएंगे कि उसमें क्या क्या जानकारियां हो सकती हैं और क्या क्या जानना चाहिए। एंड अ बेसिक इवैक्यूएशन ड्रिल्स, कैसे हम अपने घर के हाउस होल्ड आइटम्स का यूज करके अपने आप को इवैक्यूएट कर सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट इज द फॉलिंग ऑब्जेक्ट। यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड दैट ऑन 40%, about 40% casualties or trauma cases are due to the falling objects. स्ट्रक्चरल कोलैप्स से ना होके जो नॉन स्ट्रक्चरल कोलैप्स होता है उससे फॉलिंग ऑब्जेक्ट से इनसे ज्यादा कैजुअलिटीज होती हैं। ये मेरे घर का फोटो है, ऑल्दो दिस इज नॉट माय बेडरूम, मैं इस घर में सोता नहीं हूँ, ये ड्राइंग रूम में लगा हुआ है, बट इट्स वेरी अनसेफ। बहुत भारी स्ट्रक्चर है और ये छोटा सा भी अगर अर्थक्वेक आएगा सो इट मे फॉल ऑन यू, सो बी केयरफुल। जो नॉन स्ट्रक्चरल आइटम्स हैं जैसे कि आरओ हुआ, फ्रिज हुआ, अलमीरा हुआ, इन सबको हमको फास्टन कर लेना चाहिए अगर हम अर्थक्वेक जोन 4 और 5 में रहते हैं तो। एंड नाउ अबाउट द स्ट्रक्चरल मेजर्स, जो पुराने घर हैं उनकी रेट्रोफिटिंग कराई जाए और जो नए घर हैं उसमें जो मैंने बताया नेशनल बिल्डिंग कोड्स और जिस तरह के आर्किटेक्ट और कॉन्ट्रैक्टर से, बिल्डर से वो बनवाया जाए, वो चीजें फॉलो करनी है। नाउ ड्यूरिंग अब अर्थक्वेक आ चुका है, नाउ यू आर फीलिंग द ट्रेमर, what would be your first reaction? To run away? But remember, it's very difficult to run away when your ground is shaking. हमको इस तरह के ग्राउंड में दौड़ने की आदत नहीं है। अगर ओपन में है, खुले में है, देन इट्स ओके, लेकिन अगर गली में से निकलना है और यू आर लिविंग इन हाई राइज बिल्डिंग, इट्स नेवर एडवाइजेबल कि हम भाग जाएं, बाहर निकल जाएं। हमको क्या करना है, वी हैव टू कवर आवर हेड, हमको अपने सिर की हेड इंजरी से अपने आप को बचाना है, जिसमें कोई बुक हो सकती है या फिर किचन में है तो फ्राइंग पैन हो सकता है, पर याद रखें कि ऐसा ना हो फ्राइंग पैन में कुछ तल रहा हो और उसके बाद उसको सिर पे रख लिया जाए। बेस्ट वन इज ड्रॉप कवर एंड होल्ड, DCH, इसको फॉलो किया जाना चाहिए। एंड यू कैन हैव अ लुक अराउंड, अपने कमरे में जहां जहां भी आप लोग बैठे हुए हैं आप अपने कमरे में देख सकते हैं कि फॉलिंग ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्या हो सकते हैं और वो सेफ हेवन क्या हो सकता है कि जहां पर मैं अपनी जान बचाऊं, और DCH के लिए कौन सी जगह हो सकती है, यू कैन जस्ट हैव अ लुक। और अगर आपके पास कुछ भी नहीं है तो दोनों एल्बो पॉइंट करके आप अपने सिर के ऊपर रख सकते हैं, जिससे कि आप अपने को हेड इंजरी से बचा सकते हैं। नाउ द ट्रायंगल ऑफ लाइफ, इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड इम्पॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट। ये शाहबेरी में एक बार जब बिल्डिंग कोलैप्स हुई थी, वहां पर जो ओनर था वो घर का, उसकी बेटी, उसके 3 साल की बेटी उसके चेस्ट पे सो रही थी और दोनों लेटी थी और वो टीवी देख रहे थे। वो सोफे पे जैसे 4th नंबर कॉर्नर पे जो मैंने फोटो दिखा रखा है, ऐसे ही सोफे पे वो लेटे हुए थे टीवी देखते हुए। अगर उनको ये कॉर्नर ऑफ लाइफ का पता होता और वो जैसे उन्होंने ट्रेमर्स महसूस किए थे वो रोल डाउन होकर नीचे चले जाते, तो फिर भी कोई फीबल चांसेस होते 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% कि वो बच जाते, बट दे वर नॉट अवेयर। सो जो भी ये देख रहे हैं वो अपने आप को बताएं, अपने रिलेटिव्स को, अपने पड़ोसियों को, they should make aware and sensitize about the triangle of life। 4 तरह का कोलैप्स पैटर्न होता है, जिसमें सबसे ज्यादा खराब जो होता है रेस्क्यूअर्स के लिए भी और सर्वाइवर्स के लिए भी, वो होता है पैनकेक स्ट्रक्चर। इवन इन द पैनकेक स्ट्रक्चर you will find the triangle of life। आफ्टर जब एक बार ट्रेमर्स खत्म हो गए उसके बाद हमें तुरंत इवैक्यूएट करना है, लिफ्ट का यूज नहीं करना है, ओपन एरिया में जाना है। वी शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ द फॉलिंग ऑब्जेक्ट्स इन आउटसाइड आल्सो लाइक इलेक्ट्रिसिटी वायर्स। और अगर हम कहीं रोड पे ड्राइव कर रहे हैं, साथ में रोक के खड़े हो जाएं। अर्थक्वेक के दौरान गाड़ी नहीं चलानी है। व्हेन यू आर अंडर डेब्री, डोंट लेट द मैच बॉक्स और लाइटर हिलना नहीं है जब तक कि रेस्क्यूअर्स ना आ जाएं, या फर्स्ट जो कम्युनिटी रेस्पॉन्डर्स हैं जब वो आ जाए तभी मूवमेंट करना है, अपनी स्ट्रेंथ को बचा के रखना है और किसी मजबूत चीज से, ठोस चीज पर किसी ठोस चीज से नॉक करना है जिससे कि आने वाला आपको सुन सके। स्टे काम एंड डोंट पैनिक। नाउ अबाउट द फ्लड इमरजेंसीज। फ्लड इमरजेंसीज बहुत पहले पता चल जाता है फ्लड आने वाला है। नंबर 1, गवर्नमेंट के इंस्ट्रक्शंस पे ध्यान दिया जाना चाहिए। इफ दे आर सेइंग फॉर द इवैक्यूएशन, जस्ट इवैक्यूएट और पुट द सैंडबैग्स ऑन योर टॉयलेट्स, यूज ब्लीचिंग पाउडर्स। ये ज्यादातर बीमारियों का समय होता है। यूज द पोर्टेबल वाटर and eat the freshly cooked food. Watch out for the broken electricity wire. Use always mosquito net because it's a malaria season. Survival kit once again, जैसा मैंने पहले बताया, don't enter into the flood waters because most of the time अगर हम इस एरिया की बात करें तो so there will be a urban runoff या urban flooding का concept होगा जिसमें सीवेज हो सकता है, अंदर होर्डिंग्स हो सकते हैं या फिर कंसर्टीना वायर्स हो सकते हैं which would be very harmful for anybody. Now you should learn to use the improvised floating devices at your home. थर्मोकोल का टुकड़ा हो सकता है जो हमारे टीवी या फ्रिज के लिए आता है, या कोई बैग हो सकता है, ये बॉल हो सकती है, या फिर कोकोनट के खाली कैन हो सकते हैं जिसको यूज करके हम अपना जैकेट बना सकते हैं। विंड चीटर हो सकता है, वाटर बॉटल्स, एम्प्टी वाटर बॉटल्स हो सकती हैं। जिसके पास रिसोर्सेज हैं वो बैम्बू राफ्ट, शाफ्ट स्पीड, यूटेंसिल राफ्ट, जार राफ्ट भी बना सकता है। भाई ये सभी का एक मैंने एग्जांपल दिया। जिसको कुछ बनाना नहीं आ रहा वो एटलीस्ट बैम्बूज का बंडल बना के उसके सहारे फ्लोट कर सकता है। इंजेनिटी, देयर इज नो लिमिट। दिस पिक्चर बिलोंग्स टू केरला फ्लड रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशंस। जहां बच्चे ये हमारे साथ आने को तैयार नहीं थे, हमने उनको बहुत दिलासा दिया कि हम बहुत अच्छे स्विमर हैं, बहुत अच्छे रेस्क्यूअर्स हैं, बट दे वर नॉट कमिंग विद अस। तो मेरे रेस्क्यूअर्स ने ये तरीका अपनाया और ये तरीका बिल्कुल कामयाब रहा। बट बच्चे बिल्कुल एकदम कामली हमारे साथ आ गए। नाउ द ड्रॉनिंग केसेस, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी शुड रिकॉग्नाइज द वाटर कंडीशंस। अगर मैं किसी पानी में किसी को बचाने जा रहा हूँ, आई शुड बी अवेयर कि मैं कैसे पानी में जा रहा हूँ। इट मे बी अ स्विफ्ट वाटर, उसमें हो सकता है नीचे पत्थर हो, आप कूद जाए, आपको ऊपर दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है, लेकिन उससे भी इंजरी हो जाती है। वर्लपूल, इट मे बी अंडर वाटर प्रेडेटर्स, जैसे कई जगह होता है नीचे घड़ियाल या फिर ये मगरमच्छ होते हैं, सो बी अवेयर। या फिर प्लैंक्टन्स हो सकते हैं जिसमें आप फंस सकते हैं। राजा की बावली, ये जगह है मेहरौली में, ये आपको दिखाई दे रही है, ये छोटा सा ऐसे पूल दिखाई दे रहा है, लेकिन कभी कभी ये ऐसा भी हो जाता है पानी भरने पे। यू कैन हैव अ लुक। तो हमको पानी के नीचे क्या है उसका पता होना चाहिए। मैं इसलिए बार बार दिखा रहा हूँ कि अभी 10 या 12 दिन पहले एक लड़का इसमें डूब गया, उसको लगा कि नीचे तैर के आता हूँ, और वो किसी अंदर क्लोजेट में अंदर घुस गया और फिर उसके बाद उसका डेड बॉडी रिट्रीव हो पाई। We should know the methods of dry rescue: reach, throw, row and wade. ये as picture is showing वो क्लियर है। अगर हमने कोई चीज पकड़ाई है, बैम्बू से आप निकाल सकते हैं। इसमें किसी में भी आपको पानी में जाने की जरूरत नहीं, कोई भी इंसान, कोई भी रेस्क्यूअर इसे बाहर से कर सकता है। बट फॉर द स्टैंडर्ड रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन यू शुड बी अ गुड स्विमर। लैंडस्लाइड इमरजेंसीज के लिए जब भी प्लानिंग करें, जब भी घर की प्लानिंग करें, सो अवॉइड बिल्डिंग हाउसेज नियर द स्टीप स्लोप्स और क्लोज टू माउंटेन एज। अगर है तो उसके बाद उसे चैनलाइज करना बहुत जरूरी है कि अगर मलबा आए भी तो साइड से निकल जाए। यू शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ अ मूविंग डेब्री, ट्री क्रैकिंग साउंड्स और बोल्डर्स नॉकिंग। और ये इतनी शार्प और इतनी तेज आवाज होती है कि इसको कोई भी पहचान सकता है। आई हैव विटनेस दिस, मैंने ये महसूस किया है, मैंने ये खुद अपनी आंखों से देखा है और अपने कानों से सुना है कि किस तरह की छोटा भी लैंडस्लाइड होता है लेकिन उसकी आवाज बहुत तेज होती है। प्लांटेशन किया जाना चाहिए। अवॉइड द रिवर वैलीज। जब भी हम उसके बाद लैंडस्लाइड के बाद जाते हैं, स्पेशली ड्यूरिंग द सीजन ऑफ मॉनसून, ये जो रीएंट्रेंट्स होते हैं इसके थ्रू मलबा आता है और पहले से आवाज आनी शुरू हो जाती है। पहले एक बहुत तेज हवा आएगी, उसके बाद आवाज आनी शुरू होगी और उसके बाद ये मलबा आएगा। एंड जब तक आप उस मलबे को देखेंगे यू वोंट हैव टाइम टू बी सेफ। जैसे हिमाचल में है, वो बोलते हैं धारे धारे जानदा, तो उसमें यूजुअली लोग क्यों इसको प्रेफर करते हैं, क्योंकि ये शॉर्टेस्ट रूट होते हैं, पानी की अवेलेबिलिटी होती है जो वाटर बॉडीज के निकट, और उसके अलावा वहां पर खाने पीने का सामान भी मिल जाता है, फ्रेश वेजिटेशन होता है और इजी नेविगेशन होता है। बट ड्यूरिंग द मॉनसून सीजन दे आर वेरी रिस्की, नेवर यूज देम। जो भी रेस्क्यूअर्स आए उनको हमें रास्ता दिखाना हमारा काम है। नाउ द फाइनल वन इज द रोड एक्सीडेंट। We should know to check the circulation, airway and breathing. In 40% cases, if due to manhandling or not handling, the cases happen, the deaths happen because they are on the road and nobody is taking care of them. और अगर उसको निकाल रहे हैं तो उस गलत तरीके से निकाल रहे हैं, जैसे कि अभी प्रीवियस स्पीकर ने बताया कि गाड़ी से निकालने का तरीका, स्पेशली हो सकता है उसके स्पाइनल इंजरी हो सकता है कि हेड इंजरी हो, तो वो तरीका बहुत मायने रखता है। एयरवे ओपन करना, बहुत सारे काम एयरवे ओपन करने, अगर पेशेंट अनकॉन्शियस है, उसकी टंग फॉल हो गई है, आपने केवल उसका चिन लिफ्ट, हेड टिल्ट चिन लिफ्ट कर दिया, तो उसी से उसकी जान बच जाएगी। रेस्ट द डॉक्टर विल डू। प्रेशर को किस तरह से कंट्रोल करना है, स्पाइनल इंजरी वाले को किस तरह से ट्रीट करना है और समय पे सीपीआर कैसे देना है, एटलीस्ट ये एक रेस्क्यूअर्स को ये आना चाहिए। कैसे एक हाउस होल्ड आइटम्स का यूज करके स्प्रिंटिंग की जा सकती है, कैसे लिफ्टिंग एंड कैरिंग के टेक्निक्स इस्तेमाल किए जाने हैं ड्यूरिंग द इमरजेंसी मूव एंड नॉन इमरजेंसी मूव। दिस आवर रेस्क्यूअर मस्ट नो। The shirt drag, piggyback carry, cradle carry, blanket drag. These are very common and very easy examples, but थोड़ा सा रिहर्सल चाहिए होता है। Non-emergency move. So these were about the rescue techniques. And disaster doesn't mean कि 1000 लोग मर गए और 200 लोग मर गए और बहुत भारी उसका नुकसान हुआ है, जान माल की बहुत भारी हानि हुई है। अगर घर में एक बच्चे ने अगर कैंची हाथ में उठा ली है, उसको कहाँ उससे यूज कर सकता है। अगर एक बच्चे ने सिक्का निगल लिया है, दैट मे बी ऑल्सो लीड टू डिजास्टर फॉर अ सिंगल पर्सन। अगर इस पूरे जीवन में एक लाइफ भी कोई बचा सके, सो वी शुड बी थैंकफुल टू गॉड एंड थैंकफुल टू द ट्रेनिंग imparting by IDEA under the COP program. And we should remember that ये जितना भी हमारा evolution हुआ है, the human evolution, you can see the last picture, this is only 200 years or 500 years, but we were the hunter and gatherers for last 70,000 years. So वो जो हमारे blood में ही नहीं, हमारी genes में भी है survival के skills, just we have to polish them, just we have to stimulate them. So let us turn every citizen from beneficiary to benefactor, and you have to do, and we all have to do for ourselves. So जो मैडम ने शुरू में जो स्लाइड दिखाई थी कि 8% लोग हैं जो स्किल्ड हैं, मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि आफ्टर COP प्रोग्राम they will manage to, from this 8% they will manage to increase up to 80%. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aditya Pratap sir. It was very informative, and I'm sure like us, everybody has learned a lot as to the basic rescuing and the survival skills. So what we see now is that somehow the survival and the rescuing and the fighter skills, they are kind of combining together. So now we come to Dr. Nishant Hiremar, the last technical session. We'll talk of the savior. So it is not only the rescuer the survivor, but it is also the savior, a person who saves others. So Dr. Nishant Hiremar is disaster and emergency medicine expert in hospital care. So I invite him for the last technical session. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Nishant.
Thank you, Madam Chandrani ji. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Nishant here, and it was a wonderful presentation from the previous speakers. I think most of it was said by them. I just need to complete the story of the present scenario. I will, can I share my slides? Okay, I've been talking about basic life-saving skills. I would want to put that across because we are reaching out to community. I think from long it's been due. I think Idea and Chandrani ji and the Major General Sir, I think they've given us an opportunity to reach out to the and for that, what happens is these people are the ones who are affected, and we don't reach out to them initially, and that is why we've been losing a lot of lives. Do as experts, but I think the government and the rest of the other people to come out with a better structure and a teamwork for them to save a lot of lives, because as it was told that we are the community is the first responder. we have a lot of disasters like earthquake, landslide, and as we all know, we've been talking about it over a period of time, over the ages, and even these presentations. We just need to know how to communicate with the public and train them and team them up as to how they can reach the hospital. So what I would say is, first, whatever said and done, whatever the disaster, I think they need not put themselves at risk or in danger, as it was told by the previous speakers, while trying to help others. So they need to be safe before they actually come out and take care of victims. What we need to understand is, are we really prepared for it? So if I'm going to go by the present scenario of the pandemic, we are not prepared to face any of the disasters. I think everybody agrees with me, because we have the resources. I'll come to that. So we have the resources, there is a demand, the supply to the demand is not happening. There is a discrepancy between the demand and supply. We need to make sure that these team up. When I'm talking about the demand and supply, there are requirements of the medical resources present, but we are not utilizing them to the extent, the way we're looking at the present pandemic. So we need to train people as to face these disasters. So in terms of training them medically as well, I will come to that. So idea, we are coming out with the awareness for families as well, for giving them a pictorial representation of how to handle certain first aid in the household, like a stroke or a heart attack, how they need to face things. And it's been done in supervise and in the IT companies. And as a community, as a family, they need to know how to handle this. Once they do that, and then it'll be easy for them to imbibe that into the rest of the other community. So what we need to do is a statewide training exercise and exercise along across the state. What is happening right now is we are only training the governmental organization separately and the community as a separate entity. We are not clubbing together both of them and trying to come out with the idea of teamwork. Only when both the community and the government comes together, to reach out to the community. I think it's a wonderful gesture. For that, people have to know what they need to keep in mind, what they need to keep at home. These are a few things as a first aid kit. Most of the times when we talk about first aid, is like one of those, just the gauze piece or one band-aid, and then that is called a first aid kit. If you look at most of the other places, when it comes to a public place and a community, we need to teach them as to need to be there in the first aid. So from gauze piece to the gloves to the band-aid to the ointment, the required plasters, everything need to be placed in their first aid kit. In the house, we need to also ambulances to reach out to them, and when in case it is required, we need to make sure that they are also a part of the program, where the government authorities have all the structure for these ambulances, so that this is implemented in all the states, and that is where they can provide information to the community as well. Plus the training can happen through them, and the community training can happen through us as well. Example of what happened when there were Chennai floods. We had Chennai floods, and we did not have much information as to how to manage those people there. From here, about 20 ambulances went into the Chennai zone, and we were supposed to camp just outside the city, and we had to take care of patients in the campsite. So if there is a communication that happens between and the thing, it would be great where the losses of lives would be minimized. And NDRF did a great job during the Chennai floods by giving out. Sir was talking about pouring in chlorine onto the water. So we also took lots of chlorine and we wanted to decontaminate the water there as well. So when you're looking at it, you need to spot the scene where it is safe for people and where it can be safe for managing these patients. So that you will not be able to manage any of these patients. So you need to make sure that you spot a scene which is safer for yourself and the community, and then go ahead and. So we need to be prepared. So we need to train the community according to the first aid, from looking at every basic aspects of a stroke, an heart attack, an accident, how we can manage, and all those things we need to come up. So how do we do that? We need to train the community along with the experts, training of the trainers, and probably give them insight about how to train the community as well. So when we have a first aid program which is running, which we train a lot of people based on these scenarios. So if you're talking about a stroke, we need to know what are the problems that a patient with a stroke can have, and how fast they need to reach the hospital, and what are the things that they need to do before they get to the hospital. And they need to understand that they need to have a list of hospital numbers so that they reach out to the hospital faster than going to any of the clinics. So they need to have a contact list, just like what it was told about a distant far relative. Just like that, they need to have a close hospital address and the phone number for them to reach out to the hospital. When we are doing all those things, anything that comes to a disaster, and we have landslides, we have people collapsing from a building, and patients falling from the heights, and patients being drowned, and patient having an electric shock, all of them, when they collapse, we need to train them how to do a cardiopulmonary resuscitation, just like the way it is, like how to move the airway, how to move the, do a head tilt and chin lift, what is the breaths that you, what is the compressions that you need to give for these patients. And only when you continue to train this community, you will be able to make sure that these guys do a good job. What happened, I'll just give you an example. There was one of my consultant whose father had a cardiac arrest in the house. He started doing support of doing a CPR and giving breaths to the patient, because he's been an emergency physician, and he could do that for about 20 minutes, take the patient to the hospital, and the person survived. And he's been there alive even after about 8 years of that condition. So I think every household person, if they get to know through the community, they need to get to know how to do this first aid training program. And we should make sure that it's not just giving slides out here, talking to them and going ahead. We need to do a continued community education program so that it continues, and people, every time people get prepared, and every time people are ready for it, and whenever there is a disaster, we know primary insults none of us can prevent, but we should make sure that secondary insults are not happening. So to prevent those secondary insults, we need to liaise with the community and probably train them and do what is needful by giving them all the required skills so that they are confident enough to do what is required at that point of time without panicking. I think panic is a word which happens to all of us when any of our close personnel or our close kith and kin has some kind of an emergency. We will not be able to do anything because we panic. I think first thing is we need to avoid panicking, and once that happens, then you can start calmly thinking what you need to do to the patient. We need to have disaster kits in the houses or in the community, where you need to know that we have a list of disaster kits which comprises from the water bottles to the rice flours to most of the things, like even the first aid kit also is there, so that we are well replenished with all these things, and we know that when disaster this can be utilized for our needs or the community needs at that point of time. So when I talk about just on a lighter note, when we say disaster kits, it should not be these disaster kits that we are looking at, but it should be a disaster management kits with a lot of other stuffs which are required for managing these during the disasters. I think most of the hospitals or the community or the healthcare facilities should have these disaster kits, so that I'm talking about the other disaster kits. So when we have these, it's easy for us to manage fully, what do you say, the patients who come in, with a lot of patients coming in, it's easy to manage with these replenished kits. So with this, I would say once we are prepared, we are not scared. I think I will fear no more, because as an emergency physician, I think we should be not having that fear, and so we can handle any kinds of emergencies. So the same thing with the community as well. They should not fear, they should not panic. If they are prepared and they know that they are learning, and the first aid that we train them, they should be able to not fear and but deliver it when required during the time of disasters. So I would say I wanted to put this across, only talking about how we can liaise with the community by coming out with a lot of first aid training programs. So I just put that across. I think we have a module which we will be able to present it later. Thank you.
Dr. Nishant. Again, very, very informative session. What we see is that how from the fighter to the savior to the rescuer, the roles of life saving kind of get overlapped, and so many of the roles kind of they are together, they are common. So this calls for a very, very extensive, or I would say an intensive community building session, community resilience building session, because we know that disaster management or disaster risk reduction is everybody's business. It cannot be kept to one organization or one person. So therefore, we have come to an end of this webinar of all the technical sessions, and I'm sure we all have gained immensely from the knowledge that was imparted in the session. We have time for taking questions, a couple of questions. We have about 10 minutes. So in case there are questions, please raise your hands or you write on the chat box, and to which speaker you are pointing for, or you would like the questions to be answered. We will coordinate that session. So please either you raise your hand or you put the questions in the chat box. So we have time for about 3 questions. So can we have the questions right now?
Ma'am, there is some questions. I will put forward this question to the speaker.
Yes.
So,
yeah, Mona, can you coordinate the question, because I can't see the chat right now. So yeah, please coordinate.
So one question is that Odisha is, in spite of being severely affected by different disasters, it has been excluded from the list of multi-hazard prone states. So any thoughts on that? I think I will put forward this question to Shri Aditya Pratap sir. Please your thoughts on that.
I'm not able to get you. Kindly, ma'am, say again. Or Pooja, ma'am, can you repeat?
Sir, so there's been a query about Odisha being excluded from the multi-hazard prone state. in spite of being severely affected by several disasters.
Okay. So, what is the question like? Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Pooja, you are on mute. I think Pooja is responding to this.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
audible.
Now it's
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, Aditya sir, they were asking that Odisha is a multi-hazard prone state, then why has it been excluded from the list of multi-hazard prone states? So I think Mohana, is that a question for the survey, or did Aditya sir mention that? Because uh,
So actually, the speaker is not very clear about who the question is. So I think the
yeah,
question must be for your survey. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think it is for the survey because
Yeah.
Odisha being a
Because
multi-hazard state is kind of acknowledged and recognized
yes,
everywhere. So
yes,
I
yes.
think it will be for the survey.
Yeah, so it is basically that we had taken 20. It is not an exhaustive list. We had taken 20 most multi-hazard prone districts of India. It is not an exhaustive list in terms of multi-hazard prone districts of India. We had selected 20 most, like we had not touched upon central India as I had mentioned at that point of time also. So it was just a list of 20 multi-hazard prone districts of India, but not an exhaustive one. Of course, I had cited the example of Odisha while I was discussing my presentation as well, that it is obviously a very in a very big way a multi-hazard prone state, and we have a lot of learning to do from that state as well. So it was not a missing out, but it was, you can see it as a recognition that they have been able to counter or combat their disasters in a way, but it was not a let out. We had just taken 20 multi-hazard prone districts, but no, it is not an exhaustive list in itself, if that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question is from Mr. Rigo Loy, and he would like to know how capacity is built for disaster response and what action does exactly IDEA and NDRF is taking on disaster preparedness. So he is even, I think, going to go for collaborations. So I will have both views of IDEA and NDRF. So I would request Mr. Nilesh Srivastava to speak on this, and then I would put forward the same question to Shri Aditya Pradhan.
Yeah. Am I audible? Can you repeat the question again?
What is the capacity building process for
Mhm.
disaster response, and what are the actions taken by IDEA on this field?
Mhm. If we take the present scenario, especially we have given training to NDRF for pandemic preparedness for COVID-19 in Mumbai and Pune. And there were other demand also from NDRF and other civil societies who take up such training for pandemic preparedness. NDRF, see, they have their own capacity, technical knowledge as well. And whatever things we can produce, the help we can provide, we are always open to it. Having said that, also got a kit, disaster management kit, that is a patented kit, and we call it Sanjeevani kit. So that kit contains the 12 to 15 items which can be used at the community level, and this kit can be used by the NDRF as well. This is a matter of discussion between the ministries and the NDRF official also, so that they can use, and we can distribute these kits to many in a manifold to the not only NDRF but to the other community level as well. Beside that, these things we have the IT solution and the GIS technology as well. So not only training part but technical part is also the main core area of that idea, and we try to focus to provide all the technicalities and support and the capacity building program to NDRF, Civil Defense Society, and other agencies, and then at the community level, whatever things is possible. So see, NDRF have been providing many life-saving big equipments themselves we need not to give them these equipments, because these are very costly things also, and these needs require the approval from the government also. So technology wise, and we have also completed one of the survey. Let me tell you that the risk communication survey. We had done the perception survey for the more than 10 cities. That was the part of the social listening system for WHO. So this is not from the top to bottom approach, but from the bottom to top approach. What people are thinking in the society at the community level, how they are going to deal with a disaster, especially the pandemic for the COVID-19. So, and what is the thought process going on? How much knowledge they have, and how they are going to react on those things. And NDRF have been distributed on the basis of the vulnerability states. So that is on the national platform. You can get the information. There is no state there is no state in India which don't have any kind of disaster. Every state has a disaster of its own kind. But you can say the recurrency of type of disaster may be there. Okay, so that is the answer to the first question which was asked. So idea is nobody to tell the state which is more prone, which is less prone. All states have their own disaster, and like I said, looking after the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak scenario, we can say that there is no area left as of now if you're about a disaster or emergency situation. Thank you.
So, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I will now put the same question to Sri Aditya Pratap Singh Karji. So, please your views on that.
Yeah. Okay. Apart from the specialized response during the disasters or in any emergency, we are regularly conducting the community awareness programs. We are building the capacity of community by regular community awareness programs, school safety programs. We conduct the demonstrations, exhibitions, and also as right now my 4 teams are pre-positioned for the monsoon season in Uttarakhand. So whenever there is no disaster, whenever there is not their need for the specialized response, they are going inside the community, among the community, and they are making my team members are making them aware that you should do's and don'ts about the disaster. As I told you that before disaster what should do, during disaster what should you do, and after the disaster what should you do. So to school children, to female members, lady members, and other community members, they are training them at that place only. Again, we are doing the FAMEX, familiarization exercise programs, in which round the clock we choose the 18 districts in our area of responsibilities, and for 15 days one full team of 47 members go to that place, and for 15 days they conduct the awareness program, depends on the vulnerability profile of that district. So like we are throughout the year we are doing the community capacity building. If we come to COVID-19, the day when the whole nation was in deep slumber and the first flight from Wuhan was landing in India, NDRF is activated. NDRF was activated at that time only, and we were there to respond on the airport, IGI airport, and till that date, we have conducted a lot of awareness program for the workers and the initial handlers of seaports, airports, CISF staff, at Supreme Court, at Parliament staff, Delhi Police staff, and the quarantine center staffs in Uttarakhand and Delhi NCR region. So that's how we are doing the capacity building.
Thank you, sir. There's one last question that I'd like to pass to Shri Manish Kumarji. It is regarding how we can prepare communities for industrial disasters like that happened recently in Visakhapatnam. So what is your views on that?
Okay, so related to industrial disasters, there are a lot of issues, especially as sir was mentioning, if you're talking about MAH units. So it's related to off-site and on-site emergency response. So some liabilities are with the industries who are having high hazardous material, storage of some components which can be disastrous and affect the neighborhood. So that liability is with the industries according to our legislation. And secondly, at community level, if those societies are located nearby those hazardous units, so they must take complete input related to the specific emergency response in case there is any leakage of chemical, or if there is any leakage of gas, like Visakhapatnam case which you have mentioned, is also such scenario wherein the gas which is poisonous in nature, if people are aware about specific action, the direction of their evacuation, what specifically, like wet cloth, covering of wet cloth in case of poison gas scenario is also very common example. So such kind of basic knowledge should be given by industries to those localities, and this is very well part of off-site emergency response plan to the industries. So that way our legislations also mandates such kind of awareness programs at community level, and it should not be restricted only to the people who are inside the factory premises. And second way is to make some representations in community who can take such kind of awareness sessions and program at local level. So that is another way to do these things. And similar was the case in Bhopal, which was way back in 1984. So that was also the similar situation.
I want to add something.
Sure, sir.
Can I? Yes, ma'am. As you asked, we regularly conduct the mock exercises. As Mr. Munish Kumar is saying, that off-site emergencies and on-site emergencies. So we include the district administration also during the mock exercise. Basically, they conduct the mock exercise and we participate as a specialized responder for CBRN emergencies. For on-site emergencies, the chemical plant is responsible within its premises, and if the leakage, chemical leakage or whatever, the liquid is going beyond the parameters of that factory and it is affecting the local population, then thereafter the district administration comes into action. So we are doing regular, NDRF battalion, my area of responsibility of this Ghaziabad battalion is Delhi NCR and Western UP, Haryana and Uttarakhand. So we have selected the MAH units and PSUs for the mock exercises, and regularly we are conducting the mock exercise in which community is also invited, and we make them aware that जैसे कि अभी Mr. Munish Kumar ने बताया कि a wet cloth is sufficient. कई बार गैस हवा से नीचे बैठेगी या ऊपर जाएगी, हवा से हल्की है या भारी, अगर इतनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन कम्युनिटी के पास है, so that may suffice. वो किसी की जान बचाने के लिए काफी कारगर हो सकती है. As like in the Bhopal gas कांड, Bhopal in 84, अगर वो वेट क्लोथ लगा के, या कई लोगों ने अपने घर को बंद करके सील भी कर लिया होता अपने वेट क्लोथ से, तो many lives would have been saved. So that's how we are also doing the community awareness program, and this is a CBRN emergencies are basically a separate topic, so I didn't include that. Thank you.
So with that, I would end. We are coming to the end of the webinar. So on behalf of NIDM, I thank all the eminent speakers and the Institute for Disaster Emergency and Accidents for their collaboration. And I would also extend my thanks to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, PSF Executive Director, NIDM, and Dr. Chandrani Bandyopadhyay for their support and guidance. And with this, I would like to conclude today's webinar. Thank you again, once again, all the participants for their active enthusiasm. And that's all. Thank you.